What if you wanted to take over the world? Perhaps not the world, but your world. The town or city you live in, your state, your country. A total crackdown of the system that is, to start a revolution and forget what once was. You want to enforce your laws and your administration. Change that extreme requires an audience of mindless sheep, not critical thinkers who could potentially put an end to your rule. So, because you are power hungry and in need of full control, you start the path to pursue tyrannical leadership. The only problem is people happen to like freedom and choice, or at least the illusion of it, and democracy is praised, especially if you live in the Western world. You rely on the passionate loyalty, devotion, and trust of your followers. You need to create a state where dissenting arguments against your regime are not tolerated. That can only happen if they can't recognize your selfish intentions of control. So you start with the most notorious method of manipulating the masses, which is anti-intellectualism. Anti-intellectualism is a rejection of intellect, reason, and experts, manifesting as skepticism or hostility toward intellectuals and education, prioritizing common sense and emotions over critical thought, and contributing to the endorsement of misinformation and populism. It is a tool used to lead people to favor subjective beliefs and dismiss facts that contradict their views. Basically, people are encouraged to dislike people who are smart or educated. There is a misconception that smart people are stuck up. This likely began during the McCarthyism period after World War II, where intellectuals were labeled as eggheads. Intellectuals are seen as out of touch, likely due to how expensive higher education is here in America. But a person does not have to be educated to be an intellectual. They just have to be curious, enjoy logical argument and learning. It is free to read and write and to do research, but many people are lazy and are spoon-fed by the news or choose not to learn at all. In elementary school, we were taught that slaves were not allowed to learn how to read and write. Being young, I went home from school and asked my mom why, and she replied with, "Because knowledge is power." The McCarthyism period, named as such due to its leader, Joseph McCarthy, was the effort to find communists and destroy communism during a post-World War II Red Scare. It was mindless and destructive, comparable to the Salem witch hunt, in which all you had to do was say someone is communist without any proof, and there would be major consequences. Anyone with connection to anything of communism paid the price. Professors were targeted and lost their jobs, as intellectuals were in constant threat of having their reputation smeared. Authors believed to be in support of communism were censored and books were banned. Critics, experts, and officials were shot down with the label of communist or egghead if they spoke up with dissension towards McCarthy's methods. Americans were encouraged to lead with blind patriotism and to never question the American way of capitalism, which in Joseph McCarthy's book meant to never question his authority. I truly believe that his zealous hunt for communists was disgraceful, as it was in the name of American pride. I am full of American pride because this country was founded on the ideas of freedom and democracy. To rule and control through fear and manipulation inherently goes against the American way. It was only poetic that McCarthy's fall came from the American army refusing to be smeared by him, because after all, they were the ones who fought for his rights in the first place. Another historical example of a rise in anti-intellectualism is during the Cambodian genocide starting in 1975. A group by the name of Khmer Rouge, led by one man, Pol Pot, took control of Cambodia. Pot's goal was communism, an agrarian-based classless society. The Khmer Rouge shut down schools, the money system, freedom of religion, and cities, forcing people to farm in the countryside. They believed the education and lifestyle they were trying to rid Cambodia of came from the Western world, which they despised. The group targeted doctors, lawyers, teachers, even people who wore glasses, because their education was a threat, and supposedly Western-based. But really, they wanted no one to fight back, as periods of anti-intellectualism are inherently low tolerance for dissension. Eventually, in 1979, Vietnam invaded Cambodia, taking Khmer Rouge out of power. Cambodian refugees fled to Thailand, many of which then emigrated to America afterwards. But all in all, nearly 2 million people died due to starvation, overwork, disease, and execution. The most famous genocide, the Holocaust, led by the Nazi Party, was infamously known for being a thriving period for anti-intellectualism in Europe. Nazis burned books to rid intellectualism, particularly Jewish intellectualism. It was a ritual for the German spirit, but most importantly, it was an intimidation tactic against any thought that opposed the Nazi regime. The classroom was rewritten for false science to uphold eugenics. Literature was muted unless aligned with the German mind. History was removed or changed to show how perfect and superior the Germans were. It wasn't about education, but about training them to accept total authority of Nazi leaders and in turn creating total compliance. Adolf Hitler once said, "Universal education is the most corroding and disintegrating poison that liberalism has ever invented." Joseph Goebbels, who was the Nazi minister of propaganda under Hitler, said, "Not every item of news should be published. Rather must those who control news policies endeavor to make every item of news serve a certain purpose." They understood the significance of media control and propaganda and the manipulative effects it would take on the masses only if intellectualism was destroyed, and they found dissension and argument something they should even fear considering. So, I hope that you learned a lot from the historical examples I provided, but I have written a little essay, if you will, that I'm going to read off, and I wrote, "In these cases, it is important to note that not all reading and writing systems were eradicated, but was encouraged if in the name of their cause, and universities were reshaped to fit their belief systems. Are you truly learning if the education you're receiving is controlled, filtered, and limited? The illusion of freedom was the cherry on top for the anti-intellectualism propaganda, as people are slower to resist if they have the illusion of hope and freedom and choice. Stop mindlessly consuming biased media and do your own research for your own good." Hence why I created this whole account, so I can push myself to research and learn on my own instead of being fed what I'm supposed to believe. Since when did learning and curiosity become so dusty and forgotten? When was the last time you read a book? When was the last time you did research into something scientific? When was the last time you truly wondered and questioned the system around you? Knowledge is power, and feeding your mind is one of the most important things we can do as we go through life. It's not too late for you to start learning another language, or to pick up an instrument, or to travel. If anyone has the means to travel, take that opportunity. Do not let childlike wonder die off. Truly, someone must wonder why the sky is blue, or how electricity works, or if there are cures for certain illnesses. We as people need to look within and figure out why there is a decline in curiosity and a decline in a desire to learn. If we slowly reject critical thinking, we will eventually reject empathy and connection to other people, in turn desensitizing us to what we should be most sensitive to. And it turns off our receptors for when something may be slightly wrong, leading us to allow what is terribly wrong. We become like sheep, which are ironically animals with one of the lowest IQs. Think critically for yourselves. Do you think we are currently in a period of anti-intellectualism? Comment down below. Hi, my name is Alana, and this is my first video. Consider this channel independent journalism, And if you really like today's video, there will be a lot more like this. And I think that's especially important considering the topic of today's video, which is literally about learning and doing as much research as you can. And that's what this channel is really about for me. It's about learning and researching because that's what journalism requires. And I have a lot of fun ideas I'm doing up next, which they take place in historical topics, psychology, current events, politics, just some opinion pieces, like philosophical takes, if you will. Yeah, I'm really excited for everything that's to come. So please subscribe.